Hello again. We're back at you another week. Brother Melvin here. We want to have a continuation of what we did last week because we got so many good responses and some questionable responses who were interested in how we assess from program to program. And we want to connect them all because we're all based here about family and love. Putting God first to make the family strong through the bonds of love. We last week had a family, which you've seen at the beginning of this program. We had a shot of the family that is together. In the midst of that family, we had something that we did not have last week, and that is the figure of a church. Now, I'm going to connect this week with question number 6 of the 10 questions. And that is our government making money on our youth, on the dumbing down of our youth? I would have to say absolutely. The evidence and proof is all around us. Where you once would have churches filled with people that are about nothing more than the praise, now church has become a place that you just compare clothing. Church has become a place where you come to see who's in charge, and so you can downgrade those people because that's where you want to be. Church has essentially become a popularity contest and a social club. The government has a lot to do with this, just as if they have a lot to do with the downgrading and the downsizing of our school system. Our parents need to become more involved in our children's life. The children need to learn to be able to stay as children. It is such a glorious and golden opportunity to be a child at any given time, especially these days, but it's just harder for children to be children. I've come to the conclusion as I've talked to young people all over the place in this city that there's no such thing as children anymore. Children now come out as adults. They talk like adults. They respond like adults. They begin to think like adults. There's such a hurry to grow up, not caring or knowing about the responsibilities that it takes to be an adult. Young teenage pregnancy is something that we've hit on several times in this program. Today we're going to touch on it again. And we will continue to touch on it because it is such a prevalent aspect of the black community. It's such an important part of the black family. It's very important that we begin to realize and know for ourselves that little girls do not get pregnant by themselves. It is important to know that little girls cannot raise babies by themselves. It is important to know that these little boys that get these girls pregnant are seeking, they're searching. They think, and I think it's the world that we live in that gives this sort of education, that then now this is the little boys' mentality. Young men, young black men, they feel that in order to be a man, you have to have a lot of babies, or the amount of babies you have is what makes you a man. We on this program contest to that particular philosophy, to that particular way of thinking. The family structure is so important that it cannot be run by a child or a childlike person. If you think in the terms of adulthood, then you have role models in your family. You have number 1 and number 2. Big Mama and Papa Joe, whom you met last week. They're still together, and they're still alive, and they're still keeping the family strong through prayer, through church going. They give their children no choice. They feel that when they get up on Sunday morning, if I have to go to church, the entire house goes to church. And at one time in this country, in our black community, that was a way of life. It was a rule that was unspoken and uncontested. The children did not have an opinion about going to church. I say this because I am a church-going man who was raised in church, and I hated it when I was little. It was nothing worse on the planet to me than having to be in church every Sunday. But now that I'm an adult and I see what has happened to the children that we are raising or that are around us or that is in our community, I realize that church, seeking God in your life, is the only way to go. The problem with seeking God is that people seek him in the church. And I'm reminded of a story that my father told me about how he passed the church one day and the devil was out there crying his eyes out, crying like a newborn baby. And my father, on his way into church, he asked me to say, "Oh, what's wrong with you? What's the problem?" And the devil say, they're lying to me and say that lying on me and say that I don't go to church. I'm in church every week. The devil is in church every single day. Okay? It's important for us to realize that that's where we find our most strive, our most the people that are talking about one another, the backsliding, there's power struggles, everything is found like that in church. And church should be a safe haven for people who are searching to better their lives, to enhance their souls, to have a closer walk with the Creator. The school system doesn't help either. They have taken prayer out of the schools. When you've taken prayer out of the schools, that started the shooting in the schools. It leaves a situation where the teachers are afraid to teach for fear of their lives. A teacher should never be afraid to give a proper grade because of fear of their life. We need to understand that the government, going back to the original point of this program, the government, all of this is a plan. All of this is for our children to be dumbed down. They don't want them to ask any questions. They don't want them to do anything but continuously pay those taxes and go to work so you continuously be good consumers. The government don't want anyone asking questions. They want good consumers. It is important that little boys begin to forget how to be a man, that the man that they read about in the history books when they're little. And then as we get older and become men, we forget more. We all have to understand that our black youth are being eaten alive by everything other than the proper education. They're being eaten alive by the technology. They're being eaten alive by the false miseducation in the schools. They're being eaten alive because most black children, most black adults, as a matter of fact, would love to be in church if not for how church people act and conduct themselves. We need to conduct ourselves and walk upright so we can be noticed. You need to realize that your life, your behavior, your language, a lot of times is the only Bible that a lot of people will read. So if you have a personality or language that every other word is a curse word, every other sentence is talking about someone else, then you are not walking upright. And someone is watching you. Someone is looking and saying, why should I go to church? That person there is in church every week. They don't seem to be saved by God. They're not displaying a God-like mentality. It is important to know that at one time, all of us, everyone, was brother and sister. We've gotten away from that to where it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or who you're with. What's important is what you drive. What's important is what you wear. What's important is where you work. What's important is where you live. When all of these things will one day eventually fade away. And the only thing we can take with us is our souls. And we need to more and more times work on our souls. I love being black, but I do not love the position the government has my people in. We need social equality. We need economical equality. We don't have it because we don't come together. And we cannot continuously blame the Caucasian people, quote unquote, the white man. Here's a scenario. If I knock you off of your stool, then it's my responsibility. I knocked you off your stool. But if I come back a day later and you're still on the floor, it is your responsibility. It is your fault. It is on you. We thank you for listening. We're going to hit on a lot of other points in the oncoming weeks. We're asking you to continuously stay tuned with us, continuously leave your comments, and continuously pray. Prayer is the key to the kingdom, but your faith unlocks the door. I'm Brother Melvin. Please continue to come back and see us again. Once again, leave your comments at the bottom of this page and be blessed and stay peaceful.